The Torah uses a strange terminology for counting. When you raise Sisa, so when you raise them with kudeim, when you're counting them. What does that mean? The Shir Zatzal uses this as a chizuk before Shavuos. Shavuos will be kabbalah the Torah, and the Torah is a big Torah, and you get scared. You kabbalah it, but you're supposed to make a new kabbalah every year when it comes to Shavuos, because it's a new commitment. Every year is a new commitment. You grew a year older, you understand the year more, so it's a new commitment. And the people have to understand that who they are. And the point that they learn of who they are is that you're one and Moshe Rabbeinu is one. Aaron is not counted, so you don't count Aaron, but Moshe and you are one. Now, I can't compare with Moshe, so what are you even making the joke for? We're not talking about what God's gifts to Moshe Rabbeinu were, that he was the Passover to be able to be the biggest Navi in the world, that he was the smartest man, all these things. That was not something he did. That was God gave him. It's what he did with it that made him special. And it's the same thing with us. The Owen Hashem only demands from us the use of the keiches that he gives us. And that's all he demands of us. He doesn't demand more. And that's basically what we're supposed to do. And once we do that, we're equal to Moshe Rabbeinu. In a way of how do you do that? The question is, how do you do that? It's a good question. I believe that's the book we give Simcha L'Kim Kefraim from Menashe, that you should be as big as you can. But there's also a point that you have to realize that you're bigger than you think you are. Metzias of you is bigger. And as a joke, my wife used to, I analyzed it after the joke, but she used to always say when they asked her how tall she was, she said it was 5'6". If she was 5'2", we're lucky. Okay, but she said she was 5'6", and the guys would say, whoever's taking the information, says, you don't look 5'6". Said, I'm short for my height. And the guy would put down 5'6". Okay, short for your height. But she was right in what she was saying. I'm short for my height. I'm really bigger than I am. I just don't look that way. And that's the point that we have to understand, that we are bigger than we are. And that's the part. And once we understand that, we can get maybe to the part of who we are. Anyways, it says that you're supposed to count Klal Yisrael. And the person is going to give in this counting, he's going to give a redemption from himself in order that there shouldn't be a magefa. And Rashi says, why would there be a magefa? Because you're counting Klal Yisrael. You're not supposed to count Klal Yisrael. Like we all know when you're counting a minyan, samecha. You don't say 1, 2, 3. So the chayre is, so if it's an aveira, so why you tell me to count them? And if it's not an aveira, so what do I need a kapara for? The answer is that you're right. I don't need. The Ben Hashem does want a count. Counts are very important. We have a census right now. I think we're just finishing the census. I'm not sure exactly they're still doing it or not, but there's a census. Census has a purpose besides legislation. You can't move into an area unless they have they have a seat for you in the public school. They do not have, if they make a new project, they will build a new public school. But there has to be a seat in the school system. It's not like places that we ourselves own, because we're not organized. If we would have the keiches of a malchus, there would be the same idea. That you have a place that has talmidim, you're going to have yeshivas. There's no talmidim, I won't have yeshivas. But I can't have with talmidim and no yeshivas, that wouldn't exist. And now we have such situations sometimes. But by the public school system, it doesn't. It's not going to happen. So basically, they know that that's what has to be. So you prepare. So census is very important. You want to make an army. You want to go to war. How many soldiers do I have? You see, doch, even in Tanakh, they counted them by the sheep. When attacking Shaul, when Shaul was attacking Amalek, 200,000 Yehuda. It was the same. There was an idea of knowing who the army is going to be. If you have a bunch of 4Fs, you're not going to get an army together. So it's very important to know who you have. So the Beisha wants to know, how many real people does he have? How many people does he have he can count as one? That's what he wants to know. And unfortunately, there aren't too many. And that's why he wants us counted. But what should you do? If I'm going to say, I'm an onof, I'm not one. I'm not worthy of it, I'm not this thing. So first of all, the Rosh Hashiva used to say, that's not an ovid. That's in, what do you call it? It's a, oh boy, it's not inferior, you don't have the complex, but in a way you do. You're thinking less of yourself. So the person has to know who he is, otherwise he won't be able to produce. If he doesn't think he is somebody that can produce, he won't produce. It's important the person knows who he is. But you got to realize it's not your thing that made you who you are. That's God gave it to you. That's what you did with it. And you may not have done and developed it as much as you should have. So therefore you're none of. There are other people who have less abilities than me, but may have developed them. And therefore I have to give them respect and covet. But not because necessarily I'm smaller than them. That has nothing to do with that. I know it. That's important that a person realizes that. So you have to know who you are. Okay, so the Bensham does want to know that way what he calls. And when we know who we are, he knows how many people he's going to go to Tish with, how many people he's got to rely on, to do the mitzvahs, to build Klal Yisrael, to teach. Everything he knows what to do. He'll say, yeah, but, realistically, we don't reach that madrega. You're right. That's what the Kesar Kippurim is for, because we're pretending to be one, and we're not really one. So then why pretend? Why not say, I'm not one, and forget about it, because then you wouldn't try. That's the problem. You wouldn't try. We do this by benching. The Torah says, the Gemara that says that the Benish was Sisa Hashem Panav Elecha V'Yosem Choshalim. It says Yisra Hashem. The Benish is going to give you favoritism, show you favoritism. So the Malachim asked the Benish, it says Lo Yisa Panim, that you don't show favoritism. So how could you say I show favoritism to the Jews? So the Benish answered Malachim, how can I not? The Ben I was Mikayim, I commanded that you should eat, you should bench when you're full. And they went and ate a kazayas or gebeya, depends what's machlek is what's the minimum. A guy's gebeya, and they're already they're benching, right? So wow, so I have to show them favoritism. I don't understand the Gemara. If a guy would decide he wants to bench on a half of his eyes, what would you tell him? You're making a bracha l'batala, right? If the chiyuv is v'chalta saveit v'rachta, so then I'm making a bracha l'batala. So why are you telling me, it's a mailet, or what you call yourself making brachas? It's not what it means. It means that I don't expect a thank you for if you're not full. I don't expect it. But what happens if a person reaches the madrega that he can actually be thankful for kezayis or kebeya? Then the din is he has to bench with the raisa. Not with the rabbanan, with the raisa he has to bench. This the Gemara in Parshas that talks about that a cotton can be made to a gadol whenever in case two rabbanan, one of the shiur. That's talking about the takonas chachomim that we have to bench, irregardless if we feel that we want to be thankful or grateful or not. We still have to bench once we eat a kezayis or kebeya. But the Torah, what the Gemara is talking about, where he actually feels that hakos hatov, he's mechuyev min haTorah to do it. So why do we have this act of regular benching? If the guy didn't reach the madrega, why are you making him bench and make a bracha for nothing? Because since we can produce such people that they can actually feel grateful for only receiving a kezayis or kebeya, then we have to train Klal Yisrael to be like that. And therefore, we made a mitzvah rabbanon that you have to bench. Everybody has to bench with that madrega. But but the point of this is that we're not doing it for just to make you bench. We're doing it to hope that we can build you up into a madrega. Well, the same thing over here. We count you, even though you're not royal to be counted, but in order that you should keep aiming for it. And once we stop counting you, you're not going to aim anymore. Once you stop benching, you're going to forget about aiming for anything more than that. And that's the difference. Okay. He came with the name B'Shem B'Tzalel. We'll talk more about it in the further sedras, but he was only 13 years old, and he was picked to build a Mishkan. I don't know why the Torah didn't pick his father. HaravReuven didn't pick his father, because Chur was killed, and that's why they were picked to build a Mishkan, because he died protecting against the Egel, and since in a way the Mishkan is a replacement for the Egel, so therefore, not a replacement for the Egel, but since they made a chet in the Egel, they need something to get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Others learn that was the whole plan. But whatever it is, that that he died defending against the Egel, and because of that, his descendants were picked to build the Mishkan. Uri would have been about 25 probably, and Chur and the Tzalel was bar mitzvah, just bar mitzvah, 13. Just for a point of information, Kolev was 38 when this was taking place. So you figure, and he's 4 generations. Okay, so how old they were when they gave birth. But anyway, this is this Bitzal. Normally you would say in trusting a 13-year-old with such a choshev work and stuff like that. So the Shiur used to learn Pshat, Rei Karosi B'Shem, go out and see. In other words, you think it can't be done? He was picked to do it, and therefore see, he has the ability to do it, and that's what you know. So now with the benching is a bracha, you have what you call a child, child prodigy, that, so you see there's painters, there's scientists, there's, all the Zachem can be kids, right? So they're not a big kasha, but What makes you say that? How do you know he's a child prodigy? See what he can do. That's it. And the same thing came with Bezalel. See what he can do. And therefore, once he can do it, you leave him alone. And this comes, a lot of yonim of covered that you want to shtelavek for thing. There's certain things. The Gemara brings down, and it brings Rosh Hashanah. You have to have a full beard before you make a guy into a chazan for Shliach Tzibur for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. Things not necessarily that has, if you have no one else, you get a 13-year-old kid. But we're talking about the Chatchila, you try to, even though the 13-year-old kid may be a bigger Talmud Chacham, may have a better voice, you still will go with more person. That's because you have life experiences that are involved, especially when you're dealing about Yom Tshuva and stuff like that. A young kid he doesn't even understand what you're talking about when you're talking about Chet. And the person who lived a longer life, and especially one who's poor, understands the necessity of connecting with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's why it's a maila. No one wants a person to have to be poor. But it's a person who has tzoros, he's more ideal in representing the tzibur on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, because it's a time when you're trying to appeal to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for rachamim and stuff, so you need a person that appreciates that appeal. Somebody who's a very rich man and this and that, it's a big deal, like I got everything in the bank, I don't need anything. So when he davens, he doesn't really daven with that kind of going on, just to hope that I don't lose my money, or whatever it is that he's having this cover on it. The last mitzvah before the Egel is Shabbos. And it tells you a very important halacha here. In other words, it's telling you why Binyan Beis Hamikdash is not Deiches Shabbos. Now, obviously, there's have a meaning. You can say, well, it's only a mitzvah. And Shabbos, a mitzvah is not Deiches Shabbos, but we see there are mitzvahs that are Deiches Shabbos, meal is Deiches Shabbos, Kabbanas are Deiches Shabbos. So maybe Binyan Beis Hamikdash is also Deiches Shabbos. So the din is that Binyan Beis Hamikdash is not Deiches Shabbos. Okay, and he teaches it to us twice. We'll have it over again maybe next week. That's where the Ikil din is. Here, it gives you a whole Hagdama of why it's important that that we should know the reason that Shabbos is holier than and he says, why should it be? And Rashi says Lodas who, because the Gemara says a little different than this. Lodas, to know the goyim, Ki Hashem Mekadishchem, that I'm the one who makes you holy. So, what does that mean? To show the world that I'm the one that makes you holy. The child is what makes us Fumiyidin. Why do we keep Shabbos? Why Shabbos is so important to us? Because Shabbos shows that we're of the Hashem, that we're the servants of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What do you mean that we have a Torah, and this goes back to Bereshis, and it says over there that the Goyim, to tell the world, or that the Torah should have started Ma'acharish Hazelachem Moish Chadoshim. That's first Rashi, Chumash. To teach you that God gave us the land. That's not the issue. But the first part he's saying there is that the Torah should have started Acharish Hazelachem Moish Chadoshim. Why? The Torah that starts from Ma'aseh Bereshis for a very good reason. Ma'aseh Bereshis, it tells you how everything happened and why there's a week of Shabbos, why there's a thing there, and there's a purpose in life, and that's why you have to take a rest once in a week and to rethink whatever you're doing, if it's right, if it's not right, and so on. So it's a very important lesson. Why would the Torah leave it out? Because we don't need it. Why don't we need it? Because we have a Torah. The Torah tells us how to act from the minute we get up, the minute we go to sleep. You gotta know exactly how we have to act. And since we know how we have to act, then there's no purpose in any of this stuff. I don't need anything more than that. So he's telling you, you're right. For you, you don't need it. The Goyim also need it, and that's why the Torah says this thing. But it's to tell you what your purpose is, because you're a slave of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Not just that you're doing it. You're serving, you're a slave of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That makes you special. You're not just someone who believes in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're an Eved Hashem. You're a slave of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what makes you special. So in that case, if that's to show what you are, so even building a Beis Hamikdash, of serving the Beis, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the announcing it, the dedication of itself, of being an Eved Hashem, is more important than what you do as an Eved Hashem. And we have to teach that to the Goyim, that they will understand why we're special. Well, we're special because we're Avdei Hashem. And that's what we're supposed to show them. And it's, as I say, it goes into it. There's a lot of psukim involved here, and count them exactly, but it starts at Yud Beis, it ends at Yud Ches, so it's at least 6, 7, whatever it is, psukim, right? After the Chet HaEgel, all of a sudden, you have one pasuk. Vayakel, he says it takes supposed to do work 6 days. The rest of the day, anyone who doesn't do it gets killed. That's the only pasuk you have. Really, there's 3 psukim in the parasha, but that's the pasuk that tells you. It's telling you exactly the same thing, that Binya Beis Hamikdash is not the Shabbos with one pasuk. Here it's taking all these psukim, there's only one pasuk. And the reason for it is because when you made the Egel, all of a sudden that's a lumdus that you have, a lumdus. That we want to serve God. Moshe Rabbeinu isn't here anymore. We have to have a substitute. You have to have a substitute. And what did they pick? They picked an Egel, which as a substitute, that is one of the 4 forms of the Chayes HaKodesh, or one of the 4 forms that existed originally. The Chayes HaKodesh, afterward that one disappeared. And the Egel was not originally intended to be Avodah Zarah. It was intended to be as they say, a Hashreis Hashchina, similar to the Mishkan, like a place where the Menachem will rest the Shechina. In fact, I think the Rambag, I'm not sure, in Tanakh says the reason that Yorav Menavot picked an Egel when he wanted to mimach the Klal Yisrael, and he got even what do you call it, Achia Shalaini to sign on it that it's not that whatever he says is not Avodah Zarah, is because the Jews used it in the Midbar. So how can it be Avodah Zarah? And we were just killed for it. What do you mean it's not Avodah Zarah? Of course it's Avodah Zarah. No, it's not Avodah Zarah. It's Avodah Zarah because the Erev Rav didn't understand it, and what they did is they thought, oh, these guys know what they're doing. They made a new party for an animal. Okay, that's what we want. And they joined into the party. So they made the party. And they made the people were nichshel. But originally, they did not build the Mishkan. They did not build the Egel for that. And we'll see that in a second. I would send the psukim to that. Okay. Aaron, they killed Chur, because Chur is trying to stop this, and for that reason Aaron gives in, and he doesn't give in so much to protect himself, but he doesn't want to be Navi v'Kayin b'Yom Echad, that they shouldn't be two killed. So where was the Kayin? Aaron was the Kayin, right? And Chur, we don't find he was a Navi, so where are you talking about Kayin and Navi? Chur was a Bechor, so he was a Kayin yet. And Aaron is the Navi. And therefore they already killed the Kayin. So he didn't want them to kill the Navi. And if they kill the Navi, then the bench will bring a big, destroy them completely. And that's what he was trying to protect them from. And how did he want to do that? He tried to deflect their enthusiasm for the Egel by trying to postpone it all for a day, which he did, but it wasn't enough. But originally it says, let's see what the words are. First of all, he asked this a shvach to the women of Klal Yisrael, that he asked for the earrings that are in the wives and the kids, and they should bring it. And it says, what did they do? They brought the earrings in their own ears. The wives and kids wouldn't give it to them. So therefore they had to put it they had to give their own earrings. So that's because they didn't believe in the Egel. They fought very strongly there shouldn't be an Egel. Okay. And Mashma, thank you very much. Yes, he says, so it says, Vayikach miyodim, he takes it, he made the Egel. Vayar Aaron Vayiv Mizbeach, he built a Mizbeach for Vayik Aaron Vayim Echag L'Shem Mocher, he called out tomorrow as for God. Hashim Mochers Vayalu Eilis, he brought Korbanos, Yishu Shlomim, Vayeshev Lechol, he sat to eat, Vashoso and to drink, Vayokumu Litzachik. They got up to fool around. Fool around is the Gimel things, Harayis, or the Aved Zorah. In this case, it means Aved Zorah. And that means it first became, after they finished eating and drinking, that it became an Aved Zorah. And I say, why? Because the Erev Rav saw how they did, and they told him, you really want to see how you're supposed to celebrate? We'll show you what you're supposed to do when you celebrate. And they get in there, and they got involved, and whatever, and unfortunately the Machshel people, doesn't say how many, because the total killed is about 3,000, and these are probably include the Erev Rav too, so of Klal Yisrael, it could be in Yechidim, but the only Shevet that was completely clear was Levi. Every other Shevet had at least one person that was killed. On the other hand, they also killed their brothers, it says, that means their brother-in-laws, the father-in-laws, things of that sort, where they didn't have Rachmanis, but they were from different Shvatim. Yeah. But anyway, so that was the thing. They weren't the terrible, that came down. And one of the things the Bench wanted to show with the Egel is that if he forgives Klal Yisrael as a Rabbim, not only as a Yochid gets into killing. Anyway.
Those 3,000 were the ones that were killed by Levi. There were also ones that died from the Magefa and ones that died from drinking the water.
Yeah, but it doesn't say how many there were. That's what I'm saying. So we don't really know that there was many. Usually they tell you, I was trying once to figure out when it says Amrav or anything, it makes a difference, which one means so it doesn't always make numbers, so it's hard to figure it out.
As the Mai said, when Moshe said Mila Hashem Elad, why only Shevet Levi? Because if the most of Yisrael wasn't involved,
And everybody came, only Kol B'nai Levi. That's the Chiddush. Now, why Aaron was Chayiv Misa for this. And we see that Moshe Rabbeinu in Dvorim says that I prayed for Aaron, and Rashi brings down that I was successful halfway. He has 4 children, 2 of them died and 2 lived. That means there would have been no remembrance of Aaron. That was the point. Aaron himself would have died, wouldn't have died, and he didn't have any more children after that. So his continuation of everything is the 4 children. He had 2 of them had to die to forgive for the ego. So mashma that the cheshbon that he made, even though it sounds very good what he made, the Ben Shem didn't like it. What should he have done? He should have let the ego be built. He should not have let the ego build be kaim v'navi b'yamechad. Maybe because that's up to the Rebbeinu Shalom if he wants to punish Klal Yisrael for kaim v'levi b'yamechad. But at least there's no Avodah Zarah, there's no ego. So I have no really answer for that. But Lamaisa, you see that sometimes you're not supposed to make a cheshbon. We find it also by Chizkiyahu HaMelech that Chizkiyahu didn't have children. And why didn't he have children? Because he knew that Menashe was going to be born from him. And Menashe is a Rosha that's going to cause the chupin. So he'd rather not have children. Something like that. The Reinshom Yeshaya came to him, Yeshaya Navi, and said to him, you're going to die. And he says an extra lotion of death means in Olam Haba also. You're not going to get Olam Haba either. It's not only in this world you're going to die. So he told him, why? Because you try to play God. You made a cheshbon that he's going to be bad, and therefore he's bad, I'd rather not have him. That's not your problem. That's God's business. And first of all, the guy still has Bechira and everything else there. You can't make such a decision. And they took Yeshaya's daughter, and they got married, and Baruch Hashem, they had Menashe, who kills Yeshaya and causes the Churban Beis HaMikdash. But L'maisa, the thing was, you still couldn't stop it. It was not your job to stop it. That's the point. So I guess here also, it's not your job to make such a cheshbon. That is a saying here in Yiddish. They have a kasha. Why did Klal Yisrael go and pick a calf? Moshe is not here, right? Aaron is still around, and they knew Aaron. First of all, he was around with Moshe all the time. Whenever they were doing with Nisim, as far as they were concerned, Aaron was doing most of the banging and stuff like that. He's the one that was talking to them. So, all right, I'm sure he made appear at Moshe, but you're pretty equal. So you haven't got Moshe, so take Aaron. And you knew he was an Navi in Mitzrayim, so why wouldn't you take him? So there's a Yiddish word, a Kalb from the Weiten is besser wie ein eigen Aaron. A calf from far is better than your own Aaron. And by Shidduchim, they usually bring it up. If you have, let's say, a good Talmud, and you have a daughter, so what better shidduch can you have than taking a good Talmud for a shidduch? Assuming they both want. Okay, so why not make a shidduch with a regular Talmud? And when you take one, I've heard these comments, because I have one, and they always used to say, "Amuzlein goraguta," because you took them. Why do you take them? And they don't understand that your own, you know the problems. You saw the problems, but he's that good that the problems are very minor. Doesn't mean anything, the problems. right? But the Kalb from the Weiten, what do they tell you? Oh, the best of Bacha there, and there's a thing, and all that thing there. And how good the guy, you take him. What is the guy? The guy's a Kaisen. He makes his wife work like a fell. And whatever it is, he's not a mensch, right? But he was, so a Kalb from the Weiten, why'd you take the Kalb and the calf? Why'd you take it for? You didn't know anything about it, that's why. So you also know nothing about it, you take it. It's better than your own Aaron, but it's obviously teaching it shouldn't be that way. It should be that you should evaluate what you're dealing with. Anything over there. Yeah. Anyway, Moshe Rabbeinu is successful. As I say, you don't find anywhere here that the Rebbeinu forgave Klal Yisrael. There's a Rashi later on that by the Luchas Shniyos he brings down that when he made Yom Kippur, he also said that he made Salachti Kidvarech over there, even though it doesn't say it in the Torah Meferish anywhere. So I'm saying, whatever it is it a Divrei Chazal? I believe it is in the Medrash, but Rashi brings it down over there by Luchas Shniyos. And
Chazal said the Mishkan Haidu.
huh?
Chazal said the Mishkan Haidu.
Yeah, so I'm saying, but how do they know it? And then there's no pasuk like that. You know, that's what I'm saying. If it says, I'm going to punish you in every time. In other words, I forgive you. He didn't say I forgive you. He just says, Vayinochem Hashem al Shadi B'las Islamai. I'm not going to do bad to them. That's all that he said. But what's when he tells Moshe Rabbeinu, though? When in the Tfiyas he says to Moshe Rabbeinu that when I punish them, I will, when I punish them, I will add something like that. What does that mean in English? Understand? Let's say Malchus. Bezin's going to give Malchus. So the din is, you take the stick or whatever it is there, and you give him half on the front, half on the back. Obviously, first you evaluate him if you can take it, but obviously we're talking about the ability to kill a person. If they would actually do the whole 39, you would probably have killed him. What do? You're supposed to hit with all your strength, down on the back, and then you turn them around and you do on the front. Now on the front you got kishkis over there, you got the stomach, and you got no bones to protect you. You broke the bones, they pierced them, they pierced the lungs. I mean, you're a dead man. Right? That's what the chiyuv is. Now, did it tell you have to put down a guy that's a bulvan? That a guy when he gives a shot down, it's really going to kill? Or I put a 90-year-old man that's going to do the same thing, right? And it's not going to hurt anybody. I hope by 90 years old we'll be able to do better than that. But that's what it means. So there's an Indian, doesn't mean you can give it that way. Does he have to give it with all his might? In other words, there's a psul in the Malchus. If he doesn't give it all his might, something like that, or what pshat is, that's what the requirement is. That's what you should give him. But if a guy would give a tap, it will also be eitz of the mitzvah. Okay, we find this years ago. They used to give Malchus of Yom Kippur. And I think the shamus people would line up, and the shamus would take a strap and just slide it across the guy's back 39 times. And that will be Malchus. So you eat it in Malchus and you cut it, whatever it is there. That doesn't hurt, but that's what Malchus is. So it could be Yetzer with that, that's what I'm saying. So that's one way you can do it. So let's say you have a good a kid that you really like. Noach, Motzechem B'nei Hashem. I like the kid, he's a geschmacky kid, but he does something bad. So you punish him. Nah, mein Kind. Nah, you shouldn't have done it. Okay. Or like a baby, you want to show disapproval. What do? No. You touch the hand and you say no, and the kid all of a sudden looks in your face and starts crying. Didn't hurt him, but the idea is he showed disappointment in him, and that's what he does. So the pain is not a big deal. Try it sometimes the other way. Give the kid a little bit of a slap and smile, and you'll see the kid will laugh. Why? Because you're not angry at me, so that's not important. What happens, though, when you are angry and you want to give that patch? You're not going to give that little tap anymore. Now you're going to go boom, right? That when you do that, you automatically. That's what he's telling you. I'm not giving you a bigger patch, a more patch. I'm not giving you more patch, but I'm going to give you a bigger patch. In other words, I could have given you a little one, but because you did the ego, I'm going to give you a big one. And that's how it always gets exponentially, whatever. You gets greater, the thing, without actually making numbers bigger or anything else. And you see that there is such a halacha that it can be done like that. Okay.
Now, Shiva, a side question. If they're so strong, the 39 lashes, they're only with the warning as well, right? Why the person stubborn? You know, you're going to get something you could handle it.
The B'nai we have Rachmanis on me. He'll be gentle when he does it. And the same. So first of all, he can be gentle this way. Always just touch me. And sometimes maybe he'll completely forgive me.
That's actually what
B'nai can do. Bezdin can't be do. Bezdin can't forgive you.
As why the person action, you know you're going to get something not be able to handle. Why the person is
no? So I'm saying, so the Bezdin has to evaluate him first, how much he can take, and it has to be a minimum of 3. And if he can't take the 3, he doesn't get anything.
That's what the bad inside. I ask the person itself. If you know you're going to get touched like this,
that's why.
Why is the action? You know you can handle it.
Exactly, and you know you're going to get killed. You also know that, and you still do it. So, either a kaifa, meaning like that you don't believe. So even Shabbos, a guy does it in private and whatever it is there. No one sees me. No one's going to catch me. No one's going to this. They don't really appreciate the Rabbeinu Shalom, what he's going to do, because they don't really believe. And then there's the taiva. The taiva is so great that they can't stop themselves. And you see that from the fact from the hasroya. They give you hasroya, and hasroya has to be through the dibur of the action, and that's what, about 3 seconds. And he has to say afal pikein, so it's even longer than that, and he's already put already. And yet people are chayiv misa. Why? Wait a minute, and you're potter. I can't stop myself. By the way, it's brought down somewhere, I don't remember where, that the reason that Moshe Rabbeinu was brought up in Malchus is they should never be able to say, I knew him when. Aaron, one of the reasons they didn't appoint him was because everybody knew him when. He used to jump on the benches, he used to run like a little guy. That kid's going to be my boss, whatever it is there, it doesn't go that way. But Moshe Rabbeinu, he was brought up in Paro's house, and he became the king of Kush. Then he came back the first 40 years, 60 years later. He comes back, and he comes back as with that stolzkeit, that the regal feeling of him. That's why I was like a king, was a king for so many years. So obviously you pay attention to him. You obey him a lot easier than you do a guy who looks like a nevachel. Klal Yisrael is known as Namkshei Erev. And that seems to be the big taina the Menachem had on Klal Yisrael. What's an Namkshei Erev? Stiff-necked. In English, I guess you would be, you don't give in, you're not defiant, you're stubborn. You're stubborn. That's the Aver. That is it. On one hand, it's what saves us. We are stubborn people. And because we're stubborn people, we don't give in to what the Goyim and what he called try to entice us with things. No, we're doing what we're doing. We're not changing, and that's we're stubborn people. So on one hand, it's a very good midah. On the other hand, you don't want to change, you don't want to hear, and you just, I'm right, and stuff like that. That's a stubbornness that's already comes to Averis, and in a way it's silly. I'll give you a simple mushal, how silly it is. One guy's twisting the other kid's hand behind his back, and he says, "Say uncle." And the kid refuses to say uncle. Meanwhile, his arm hurts. And there's a good chance the guy is going to shove it up past the point where he can't, where it's going to break. Where the guy doesn't know anatomy. How does he know when the point of really stopping is? Because he figured the kid would break and say uncle before he got to that point. So therefore, he just keeps pushing up. And the kid, on the other hand, says he's not going to push up that far because he's going to be afraid of breaking my arm. So therefore, I'm going to stick it out. But meanwhile, it hurts. Like, why are you doing that? The guy's a stubborn guy. I'm not giving in. Anyway, the Bensham tells Moshe Rabbeinu that the Jews are doing this. And because of that, Moshe Rabbeinu leaves the mountain, and with Yeshua, meets Yeshua, and they're coming back to the camp, and they hear the noise from the Machane. And the Torah seems to record a conversation that doesn't make too much sense, for that's not necessary to record it. Yeshua says to Moshe Rabbeinu, "Kol milchama ani shomea." I hear the sound of war. And Moshe answers him back, "Lo kol hanos gevurah, lo kol hanos chalusha." You don't hear any about winning or anybody losing. Kol hanos, you only hear noise. What's the point of recording such a conversation? What the difference to us? So the Rosh Shiur said is to teach us that when you become the leader, you can't be done like Kavschus, because you have to know what really is taking place. So Moshe told to Yeshua, what you're saying, you're hearing a war. Why? Because you can't believe, or you don't want to believe that they're doing Avodah Zarah or anything else that they're not supposed to be doing. So it must be a war that's taking place, otherwise there wouldn't be such a loud coil. That you have to realize, you have to analyze it first. War contains victory and loss. And if you don't have either one of those, then you're not having war. You have some other noise. What it is, I don't know. But you can't say gan l'kavschus, say it's war. So then it must be where the guy's having a big party. What things do they have big parties for? Then you start thinking, and then you know what to protect yourself against, and what to do tshuva about, and all that. That's the purpose of it, according to a shiva.
if really Yeshua wants to melamed zchut,
I'm sorry?
if Yeshua really wants to melamed zchut, and Moshe Rabbeinu teach him how to do at the right time, why mention it all? Because Moshe Rabbeinu didn't ask him anything. Don't mention it. That's it.
I mean, without that, you wouldn't know that you're supposed to be done. I got to be done with kapschus, so I'll never know when the kids are talking, when I hear two people talking in the middle of davening, and I'm the rabbi. It must be a pekuach nefesh, right? And so in 5 minutes later, you're going to have everybody talking. So I'm saying that's how you're going to lose the people. Now you say Shah, and maybe Taki it is, pekuach nefesh. They'll jump up and they'll both walk out and they'll continue talking outside instead of talking in the base medrash, something like that. Then pekuach nefesh they're not going to forget about just because I was interrupted. But about it is a big union is that the idea of dan lekavschus. We're not talking about dan lekavschus now because that we have to go into understanding that also. But one of the days we'll go into that because it's an important subject. Yeah. Yeah. So Moshe Rabbeinu is to now, with whatever that means, he wanted to understand a greater understanding of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Rebbeinu Shalom says, I'm going to go stand by the opening of the cave, and I'll pass by, and you'll see my face, my back. You'll see my back, but you won't be able to see my face because a person can't see my face and live. God has no face, has no back. God is infinite. What is he even talking about? So the Rambam learns pshat that it means that I will give you a bigger understanding of the Rebbeinu Shalom than other people have ever had. That's achera, that's my back. What means a back? A back is you can recognize a person from the back as well as from the front. But what happens, the difference is if you recognize them from the back, you can be wrong a lot of times. Or you look just like Joe. You look just like Gunny-Gold. Why? Because he looked just like Joe from the back. There's no features in the back. The front, he wouldn't make such an error. You're Joe. So that's the point. My face, you can't, because of a living person who's finite cannot understand infinity, and therefore you can't possibly understand because we're built. We're created with beginning and end, both in size, time, whatever it is. That's all there is to it. So, Mela, we can't understand something that's finite. I mean, that's infinite. That there's no beginning and no end. How do you understand that? No, we can't. That's what the Rambam learns pshat in that. Just let's go and skip the HaravReuven for a minute. The HaravReuven really is, I believe, in how a person, Eliyahu, the Rambam criticized Eliyahu for being a kaisen. Even though he turned it all against David Zorah and so on, but it shouldn't have had this mead in him. He's not. I don't think he's criticizing Chas v'chil Eliyahu. You can't criticize Eliyahu Hanavi, but it means to say that a Navi is perfect. He said, but he doesn't have to be perfect in every midah. and stuff. So because you find that these all Nevi'im says, oh, this one had this cast, Elisha had a different cast, Moshe Rabbeinu got angry at the other one. I think Makas is the biggest problem that they seem to have had by all men. Even though they were all against bad, they never were angry in tzaddikim. But the thing is that the fact that you have anger at all is a taina. Okay. So it talks about Elisha, about Eliyahu, and they really, we don't even have the beginning of the story so much. What happened was that Eliyahu and Achav Nachamovo Yechiel, I think his name was, that they built Yericho. And it says that with the oldest, he started the foundation, and when he finished the end of the city, his youngest died. He lost all his children. And they're coming to Menachem Avram by the loss of his youngest child. And Eliyahu says to, and Achav says to Eliyahu, how come the klol of the Talmud was Mikuyim? Because he said anyone who builds Yericho, rebuilds Yericho, rebuilds a city and calls it Yericho, this is going to happen to him. And the Rebbeinu Shalom gives, it says in Krishma, what says Hashemayim, they'll stop the heavens, they do Avodah Zorah, and the heavens are not going to give the rain, the ground is not going. And I do Avodah Zorah, and look at all the bracha we have. So Eliyahu says, okay, now you're not going to have any rain until what do you call it? Until I say so. Okay, so that's the beginning of the Haftarah. Before he came to the big body Nevi Abau, and knowing that they're coming to make that korban, that concept. Okay. There's also a medrash that talks about the two animals that they had. That the shur that he picked up to give the bow, the kani bow. So he said to Eliyahu, me, my friend, my buddy, or brother, we're born the same day with everything there, and you have everything the same. And him you're going to be sacrificed to Hashem, and me you're going to be, and you give it to Avodah Zorah. Like it's not fair. So he told him, so he refused to go. So he told him, you should know that the Kiddush Hashem is going to come through you too. But the fact that it's not going to work for you, then he'll come with Kiddush Hashem because of you. And therefore, then the animal went in peace. That should happen. That should get sacrificed to Avodah Zorah. I mean, it's these stories and the Gemaras are not meant for just a cute story. It's meant to teach us a lesson. And a lot of times in life, we need lessons, and there has to be something happening to someone, how he gets out of it, how he reacts in such a situation. And if he doesn't, how are you going to learn? How are you going to learn will tell you what you're supposed to do? So someone is supposed to suffer. And I don't even know if that's called suffering for Averas, because, you have some credit, but it's the Beisham needs it. Another thing that the Beisham needs is, for the Gemara and Tainus, it seems, from Lesbian Pedos, it seems the world has to have rich people and poor people. And a simple reason why. You can't have chesed unless you have rich people and poor people. If you only have rich people, there's no one to give to. You only have poor people, there's no one to give. So therefore you need both, rich people and poor people. Who is rich and who is poor, that's up to Rebbeinu Shalom. That has nothing to do with Einshim. That I'm rich and poor because I have no need. So therefore, chesed is done through me by being poor too. I once said this even years ago, Purim, sometimes, we're always looking for ways of doing Shalachman, Latanas Levyanim. Who's got an Evian, who's got this, what's the matter with you? No poor people in your neighborhood. No, there's no poor people in my neighborhood. And therefore I don't know how to give it. So what they, and a lot of guys don't want to take. I mean, go in the yeshivish community, right? He doesn't want to take. I remember years ago we had a Talmud that was mamish and Evian mamish, didn't have anything. And again, the guys wanted to give someone and wanted to give it to him. The guys had that was a few $100s. So I go over to him and I said to him, the guys would like to give you Antonis Levyanim, and we want you to take it. He says, no. So I said, let me ask you, are you an Evian? No, yes. Can they yetsu with you in with the din of Antonis Levyanim? Yes. So I said, that's the case, so what are you doing? You're keeping everyone from doing a mitzvah. Everybody wants to do the mitzvah, and you're the only one around that we kind of mitzvah with, so why don't you take it? Do the favor to all these other people. And all of a sudden, he took it. Same thing goes, you have certain places you go, do not visit between 10 and 2, whatever it is there, right? And for good reason. I'm not saying that, but sometimes you're sitting up 12 o'clock and there's people still there at night. I'm talking about midnight. And so why are you still there? Because you're doing a chesed to the people that are coming to Menachem Avlu. They came. And they would be disappointed if you weren't there, and they couldn't be become the mitzvah. So you stay up in order to let them do the mitzvah. So that's doing them a favor. Once you feel like that, then you can do anything you want in the world. It's very easy to do favors. You have to do it. They're doing me a favor. It's hard to do. The other way, it's easy to do. Anyway, have a good Shabbos, everybody. Good
Shabbos, Rabbi.
And,